Welcome to the Museum Roadshow. I'm Roger Engstrom. For the past 3 weeks we've been talking about St. Mary's Hospital and the part that's going to be torn down soon. And today we're going to be talking to some of the employees that used to work in this building, and they're going to share some of their experiences with us.
I came here in 1951. Right off the bat we had to take care of fractures, and we'd all had some training in that, but not a lot. And I can remember some fractures. For example, a fracture of the wrist. It was acceptable that you have a deformity of the wrist if you had a fracture of this big bone, the big bone in the forearm. That's no longer acceptable. They have to have surgery to correct that. I didn't deliver babies right off the bat, but in short order I was. At one time I had 1 month, I remember I had 20 babies in 1 month, and I was just plain pooked. Because, of course, a lot of them occur at night. And you had to work in the daytime then, too. I never did very much surgery. I'd sew up lacerations. And they don't do that anymore. That's taken care of in the emergency room. I guess, in general, you'd say that it was a general practice situation. You don't hear that term anymore. We have fancy terms now for family practice, OB/GYN, and so on.
I'm Dr. Robert Watson. I was the first internist in Becker County. I came here in '57, and Mark and I were instrumental in starting the CCU and ICU here back when, Mark, do you remember?
A long time ago.
It was a long time ago. What I recall very vividly as an internist, so I didn't do any OB/GYN. So one time there were 3 of us in practice together, myself and my brother Virgil and Dr. Dodds. And it was about this time of the year, there was a big basketball tournament in Moorhead. And Detroit Lakes had a heck of a basketball team, so we were favored to win. Well, of course, a blizzard came up, and one of Virgil's patients came in labor. So I yelled help. I got Mark, and he came over and delivered the baby. I was doing autopsies too. At one time we had two pathologists here in the hospital, I think, Mark, didn't we?
Yep.
Okay. And then they left, so I was doing autopsies. I think the thing I remember most about my hospital experiences is kind of a blur. You know, you look at the years gone by now, since '57, how many years? That was 53 years ago. Goodness, and Mark has been here longer than I have.
The one experience I remember was the 4th of July, and at that time there wasn't an emergency room. And all of a sudden there was a picnic down in the park, 4th of July, and somebody left the food stored in the trunk of the car. And I'll bet there was 15 people sitting outside on the steps waiting to be seen, vomiting and having diarrhea. Ooh. I also remember that the average run each day, you would work at the office until 8. You came to the hospital at 8, and you were through at 5 or 5:30. And then after the evening, you made 3 to 4 house calls every night. House calls are $4. Office calls are $3. That's a far cry from what it is now, as you probably know. But I think I told you the story about going out and seeing somebody, and the fellow, we got through and he wanted to pay me, and he paid me the $4, and he said, "Would you come out and see my cow?" Because obviously the vet had charged him more than that.
I came back from California in January of 1954, and my sister had worked here and knew some of the nuns, so I stopped in just to say hello, and Sister Bennett was one of them. And the next morning about 8 o'clock she called and she said, "Can you come to work today?" And I said, "I don't have a Minnesota license." She said, "I've applied but I don't have one." She said, "That's okay." So I came to work. So I started in January of '54 and I left in May of '55. And I was a floor nurse most of the time. Sometimes our Sister Rowland I worked on this second floor, which was surgery and OB. And Sister Rowland was kind of the head nurse, and then Ann Nylander was like the med nurse and so on. So I worked on the floor. We had maybe 1 or 2 aides, maybe not even that many. But there were rooms in the wing that goes east and west past here, were rooms for 2 beds. And there were times when we had 3 beds in those rooms. So it was interesting to try. And at that time, you gave bed baths. We didn't have a shower. We didn't have a tub. So you had to, if the patients were able to, they gave their own bath, and then you went in and washed their back and made the bed. But if they couldn't, you did the whole thing. And you were sometimes had 7 and 8 patients in a day, in a morning, that you had to get all of this done before 11 o'clock, because 11 o'clock the meals came out. So it was a busy time.
I started St. Mary's in 1961, and coming this October I will start my 50th year here at St. Mary's. Things have changed over those years, I can tell you, in many ways. When I first came, nurses all wore white uniforms. We wore dresses. We wore our nurses' caps. We had to carry our scissors, our pens. Everything had to be in our pockets so that we were all equipped to go into the rooms to take care of the patients.
I remember sharpening our own needles. We would get the needles, and the syringes came down into the utility room, and we would wash them and clean them, and before they were autoclaved, we would feel them, take them on our finger, and if there was a spur on the end of it, we would put it on this little wheel, grinding wheel we had, and grind it down until the spur was gone, and then they were packaged and autoclaved. In surgery, they had the gauze sponges that they used, and they went down to the laundry. They had their own laundry here. They went down to the laundry, they were washed, and when we didn't have anything else to do, we would go into the utility room and stretch these sponges and make them into more sponges. So everything was used. We didn't get rid of anything.